Hello, everybody. My name is Mark.
Hi, I'm Patrick.
Welcome to our new sort of temporary studio for the moment. We're chillaxing on the futon in my office.
Long story. Not for here.
Yeah, for another time. Look forward to the next episode of the podcast where we'll explain that. But as of this recording, we are days away from the premiere of Darling in the Frankxx, a anime that is airing in the winter 2018 season, a collaboration between A1 Pictures and Studio Trigger, and something that we and I know a lot of people that follow us are excited about, really excited about.
This collab is a long time in the making. I think this is something that they've really wanted to do since Trigger was created. Totally.
And it was a bit of a surprise when they first announced it.
Bit of a big freaking surprise.
Yeah, I was not really expecting anything like this, but turns out, as you'll see when we actually dig into it, that the people at Trigger have a lot of friends at A1 Pictures. But yeah, it's probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most. I think at least this season. Certainly one of the things I'm most interested in to see what exactly it is.
I'm most curious about because it could go anywhere. Plus, I mean, giant robots with Trigger is always fun, and we have A1 as well.
Yeah, and as you will soon see, the sheer amount of raw talent working on this thing cannot be ignored.
It shivers me timbers.
Yes, exactly. It really ruffles my feathers.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
So first off, let's start this off with like what the hell is Darling in the Frankxx and why should you care about it if you if you have been watching seasonal anime like us and haven't heard of Darling in the Frankxx yet.
I'd be impressed.
What is it?
Yeah, people have been talking about this since it was announced on July 2nd. We were in the audience. It was fun. Exactly.
This is like we said before, this is a collaboration between A1 Pictures and Studio Trigger. Obviously, Studio Trigger, the incredibly stylish studio that is behind Little Witch Academia and Kill la Kill, Space Patrol Luluco, Inferno Cop. About as all over the place as you can be as a studio. And then A1 Pictures, about as not of a studio as you can be while still being
A1 Pictures is interesting. You know, you hear the name come up a ton because of things like, you know, Sora Online and what they are. They're Aniplex's moneymaker. They're more of a shell of a studio. They don't have a ton of a full-time animation staff, but what they do have is a ton of producers and with them a ton of connections.
They're a conduit through which talent flows. Mm-hmm. They bring talent in and out depending on their needs, which no other studio in the industry really is like it. It's a really interesting
thing. The industry is obviously all about, you know, connections, and you see freelancers and like guest animators all the time, but nobody really has like just producers and only does that like A1 does.
It's interesting because A1 is a studio that I think in a lot of ways lacks the particular identity, especially one that such as what Trigger has. So it was a completely unexpected thing when they announced this because like you couldn't imagine two more polar opposite studios. Especially at the time of announcement. I think now that Fate Apocrypha has come out, I kind of am seeing the light of A1 a little bit more.
I've always been kind of curious, but I always like seeing A1's name attached because if nothing else, you know, there's some real money behind it because Aniplex likes to throw their money behind things.
Yeah. And it looks like they're definitely throwing their money and their time
which is also curious because one thing A1 doesn't do a lot is a ton of originals.
Yeah.
And Trigger, as we know, has no problem funding originals by themselves. They do it more often than not. But to see A1 team up with them is something special. And we're going to go into how that happened.
Exactly. But before we do that, we should let you know just what the show is actually like in terms of substance and story. So the premise is basically this. So it's a show set in the distant future where the Earth is basically ruined and like near uninhabitable, and humanity establishes this mobile fort city called Plantation. And inside Plantation, children are basically raised inside this thing known as Misteltein, or as hopefully they will be calling it, the birdcage. And they're basically raised there to be mecha pilots. They live there knowing nothing of the outside world, or as this plot synopsis puts it, the freedom of the sky, which is a very Japanese phrase. Their lives consist of battling to carry out missions, and their enemies are mysterious giant life forms called Kyoryu, and the children pilot robots called Frankxx, hence the name, to face off against them. And the show is going to be following this boy named Hiro, also called Code 16, who was like once known as a prodigy, but is kind of like fallen off the whole piloting thing. And this world is such that if you're not piloting a Frankxx, you're kind of not existing. Until one day, a mysterious girl known as 02 appears before him with 2 horns growing out of her head. Now, horns growing out of your head and a bunch of old Gainax people working on this thing, I know. Suspend your disbelief for just a little bit. But yeah, so that's kind of the story, that's kind of at least the premise of the thing. We know of it,
but we also know that it's going to be 2 cores and things are going to be turned on their head a lot.
Yeah, it is a far future mecha action show, basically, is how they've been pitching this thing, and also how we can infer how it's going to be by everybody working.
Given all the promotional material, I think we're going to see a lot about the interpersonal relationships as well, because I'm pretty sure these things are piloted in male-female pairs.
Yeah, and it's also clear that A1 is putting a lot of faith in this thing by hiring a bunch of big-name voice actors. Like, I know Saori Hayami's going to be in it.
The cast is huge.
Yeah, it's huge, and it is very clearly an ensemble cast, because almost every single poster that hasn't just featured 02 has also featured like the entire cast of the show. So you can definitely rely on there to be a lot of distinct robots and a lot of distinct pairs of people piloting them. So the other thing that we should, especially I think one of the reasons why we're interested in this, not necessarily because Trigger's working on it, but to kind of give you guys some history as to like why this particular group of people coming together is so important. So Patrick, why don't you tell everybody about what exactly happened when Gainax stopped being a thing?
So leading up to Gainax not being a thing anymore, we had Mr. Atsushi Nishigori be the character designer, and he was a longtime animator and character designer already at Gainax. He was the designer for Gurren Lagann and Panty and Stocking, which of course were Gainax's last 2 huge things before the split, and they became what they are now. And from there, obviously, we know Trigger happened, and they went on to do the Little Witch Academia OVAs and where we are now. Meanwhile, Nishigori went to A1, where he was the character designer for Idolmaster, and his character designs helped a lot. So he kind of stuck around there, and he's been working for A1. But it's really that connection there that made A1 and Trigger want to work together, because they're old buds. Nishigori like wants to work with these guys. You know, they're of a similar mind. They know each other from like the early 2000s going up.
Yeah, this show really is an assemblage of people that used to work like in the glory days of Gainax, when they were making shows like, you know, Panty and Stocking and Gurren Lagann, and even as far back as Die Buster and Fully Cooley. So that's, I think, why a lot of people like us who are, you know, Gainax fanboys, are so excited about this, is because it really is an assemblage of that old talent coupled with like the best new talent that you could have from these 2 studios and beyond, as you'll see.
For me, also a big deal is like I said, Nishigori, character designer. This is his first time directing an entire thing. I absolutely love his character designs. I have so many of the Dojin books that he's put out. I've got most of his actual art books, and the few episodes and one-off things that he's directed, I've thought have been pretty damn good. So to see him get like an entire show with this like crazy staff behind him, you know, working with people that he already knows that he's confident in, I'm pretty confident it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, at least we hope it is. So let's talk a little bit about sort of how we've gotten to this point. So obviously we mentioned earlier that the show was first announced at Anime Expo in 2017. Obviously this is the very beginning of 2018 now as we're recording this episode. So that's a hell of a turnaround. That's only about 6 months from announcement to actual air date, which for anime is a crazy short amount of time, especially for something as huge as this. But obviously it's been clear that they've been working on this for getting this to a point for years before they announced it. So yeah, that happened at the Trigger panel at Anime Expo in LA in early July. So yeah, almost about 6 months ago now. And a couple days later, they kind of dropped everything that you would want to hear.
They basically gave us like a poster and like a 2-second teaser, and they said, hey, more info is coming in a few days. I think the panel was on the 2nd and the big info drop was on the 6th.
Yeah. And ever since the 6th, they've kind of been trickling out characters.
It's been a steady drip.
Different mecha designs and announcing slightly more staff. But I mean, really, the initial staff announcement contained everything that you would want to hear.
Yeah, that was the big bomb. Like seeing Trigger and A1 working together was already crazy, and then seeing the names, the like individual names behind that, made everybody go, whoa, hang on, all right.
Yeah.
When is this? When can I see it?
Yeah. So yeah, like basically it's just been a 6 month process of like basically every month them announcing either some new name or they've actually been putting out a lot of character like explanation videos, and they've been releasing a lot of Koyama's Shigeto Koyama, who we'll get to in a second, is the mecha designer on this show, and they've been releasing a lot of his mecha designs. And just kind of doing a really good job of teasing this thing out to the point where I feel like we're kind of at critical mass right now.
Yeah.
With the amount of stuff that we have. So.
Which is funny because this it's about to air in a few days, but originally this was planned to air in the next season, and some scheduling thing happened where they actually pushed up the show. Originally it was going to be a straight 20 odd episode something show. But now we're actually getting the first half in January, and we're getting a split core, which will continue in summer.
And I think that's probably why the turnaround has been so quick, is partially because of that.
Well, the fact that they could push it up 3 months when most shows are, they're struggling to get out their stuff, just once again, just appeals to how strong the show really is on the production side.
Yeah. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, which is the staff breakdown. So, we talked about him a bunch already, but obviously the director is Atsushi Nishigori. He's also co-writing the series. Obviously was the animation director on Die Buster, character designer on a lot of the later Gainax projects, Gurren Lagann and Panty and Stocking being the foremost of which. Idolmaster character designer, and just a veteran Gainax and A1 key animator.
Yeah, it's important to know that all these things that he's character designed on, he definitely stepped in to do animation as well, which means it's really cool when a director gets to animate parts of his own show, which I have no doubt will be happening.
Yeah. He really is, obviously A1 doesn't really have any like permanent studio staff other than producers, but he really is one of like maybe 5 people that I think are readily associated with them, just because he kind of works on a lot of their stuff. He
works for A1. I don't know what their payroll looks like, but he's on it.
yeah, probably. Next up we have Naotaka Hayashi. He is the person that Nishigori is co-writing this series with. He is most famous for writing the original scenario to Steins Gate, the video game, like the visual
not just
novel.
Steins Gate. He did all of the whole, I like to call it the semicolon series. He did Chaos Head, Robotics Notes, all those. Yeah,
he also wrote Bravely Default, which is a pretty popular JRPG.
Pretty dark too, if I recall.
Yeah, he also oversaw the writing on all the semicolon universe series anime.
That's his stuff.
And even did series comp on like 1 or 2 of them, I think. But yeah, like definitely Steins Gate is his biggest achievement.
Yeah, it's crazy that he's a visual novel writer that actually already has experience working with television anime as well.
Yeah. And also, obviously the reason that Steins Gate was so good is because of the writing. So it's really cool to see him involved here. Next up, we have Masayoshi Tanaka, who is a character designer and chief animation director. I don't know a whole lot about his experience as being AD on anything, but really his character design work speaks for itself. He worked on Anohana, Anthem of the Heart, Toradora, and the incredibly popular Your Name.
For character designs, a lot of people wouldn't realize this, but character designers in anime studios are normally veteran animators first, and they because you have to know how these things move in order to adapt something for anime. So I'm completely fine with having somebody that has a crazy character design, credits like Your Name and the whole Anohana team, that's all his work, be the chief animator on this, when we already know everybody else is so strong as well.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, he's certainly a veteran animator, and like part of being chief animation director is knowing how to wrangle and herd all your cats, which is an incredibly difficult job, especially on a show like Darling in the Franxx, where you could very well have like very well-known key animators from like 10 different studios working on a single episode. Because here's the thing, we know Trigger's working on it, we know A1's working on it, so there's definitely going to be animators from both of those studios working on it. But I can almost guarantee you that, you know, a Yutaka Nakamura or someone else from
he's allowed to leave bones. Sure.
I mean, he you know, it wouldn't be the first time he's done freelance work, and after the season that he had, I would not be surprised if he's taken a little vacation.
We're going to see some crazy shit out of this show.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
It's almost guaranteed that on a show like this, with so many like industry folk that have so many fingers out through the rest of the industry, that can literally just be like, hey, can you do a cut for this? Hey, can you do a cut for this? So, you know, Tanaka is going to have his job cut out for it.
Crazy things with staff like this also have the tendency to attract more crazy staff.
Exactly. So yeah, it's you know, the anime industry is very incestuous when it comes to like, you know, animation, Sakuga especially. So yeah, and like when you can literally do Sakuga from anywhere in whatever time frame you set and just send the Genga over, then like, you know, it's you know, anybody can work on a show if they're wanted. So yeah, Tanaka's definitely going to have his job cut out for him. But also the character designs for the show look really good. Yeah. And they do look very similar to, you know, his work on Anohana and Anthem of the Heart, and a little bit less so Your Name, because this show,
I can see it. The shape of the face is a bit.
Anohana and Anthem of the Heart had a little bit more like cartoonish designs, I think, and that kind of factors in a lot more to what Darling in the Franxx designs look like. They're a little bit more stylized. All right, moving on. On music, we have Asami Tachibana. Now, Asami Tachibana is a name that no doubt some of you may have heard of, but not necessarily for her own work. She's actually a pretty famous collaborator. She's worked on the Haikyuu OST with Yuki Hayashi, and also collaborated with Hiroyuki Sawano on the Seraph of the End OST, which, like, both of those shows had a lot of different people working on those soundtracks, but yeah, so her credits are kind of hard to come by in terms of like what she worked on alone and what she had help with. So I don't know if this is her first, like, you know, fully original soundtrack that she's doing, but it should be interesting to see. I know a hell of a lot more about Yuki Hayashi and Hiroyuki Sawano than her. Which is unfortunate, because I always like to see more women doing, you know, music in anime, and so I'm really interested to see what the music for the show is going to be like, because I have not heard a whole lot of it yet, and I'm very interested in that. All right, moving on, we have probably one of the most important people working on this show.
Yeah,
Shigeto Koyama. Please be my
Where
guest.
to begin with this guy? So he walks around with some like dope ass sunglasses on.
He's definitely a personality.
That's kind of honestly why I started there. He is a big personality, and it shows in his design work. His mecha designs are so striking, it's impossible to mistake them for anybody else's. Yeah. So I want to start actually with Star Driver, because the designs here, they look like Star Driver designs with boobs on them. The like kind of like lanky, almost pointy mechs. Those are all him. You've seen him in, I don't know, Evangelion. That's kind of a thing. He
definitely specializes in very like sort of organic, like very good fusion of organic.
They're
and
very
mecha,
anthropomorphized,
which should surprise nobody, that knowing that he did a lot of the principal design on Eureka 7 and the Evangelion movies.
Yeah, so he did that, which is pretty crazy. He did a couple of the more organic mechs in Gurren Lagann, and I guess he did some in Genroken Gisen G. But he was on top of mecha, he was a character designer in Hero Man. But his biggest thing, which is absolutely insane when you get down and think about it, is he designed Baymax.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I always forget that about him. But so this guy, there's going to be a ton of mechs in this show. We're going to get like enemy of the week. I can almost guarantee we have all these pairs of people from the birdcage having their own mechs, and the mechs themselves, you can tell just from the designs, have a ton of personality in them, and it's really Koyama's work that makes that happen.
You did mention that he was the mecha designer on Star Driver, but what you did not mention is that he was also the mecha designer on Die Buster, and
yes,
that is the other. That is the other side of the Darling in the Franxx coin is all of the like bodily features of the mechs in Darling in the Franxx are very Star Driver-esque. Until you look and see that they all have faces with like mouths and eyes.
And there's Die Buster.
And there is Die Buster for you. His designs for Die Buster are among some of the most distinctive mecha designs I've ever seen in any anime.
Can't wait to see the toys for this show.
I know, for real, it's going to be insane. But it's just, he really is one of the most interesting and distinctive mecha designers working today, and has had such a ridiculous influence over very unique mecha design since like kind of the early 2000s, like basically since Eureka 7. I feel like has really been where his style started to show through.
That's for damn sure.
Yeah, so it's I'm super fucking excited to see what his mechs look like, because as of now we've only really seen like one.
Yeah, we've seen one, and I was about to say I was
great.
hyped. Yeah, I was hyped for this show, and then when it finally finally hit me is when they released that one design. I immediately changed like all of my wallpapers to it. I'm just like, this is the coolest fucking robot I've ever seen in my life. I need it.
It's really good. I'm very excited. So two gentlemen that we would be remiss if we weren't if we didn't mention them are Ryuta Undo and Shogo Tsuri. They are respectively the heads of the A1 and Kara digital department now. So obviously A1 we know has been working on this show, but yeah, Studio Kara is also working on this show.
Yeah, the other part of Gainax.
Specifically their digital department. So these two gentlemen are going to be pairing up and handling the 3D CGI and digital effects on the show. And if there's anything you guys know about A1 and Kara, they both have incredibly fucking good 3D CGI departments, like dedicated CGI departments. A lot of studios, a lot of smaller studios like Trigger will definitely farm out their CGI to other studios, but some of the bigger, more wealthy studios can afford to do it in-house, and A1 and Kara both do that. So it's super exciting, especially for us as, again, Gainax fans, to see Kara in any, respect working on this, because Kara is the other half of people that left Gainax when they folded, or not when they folded, but when they had the giant, talent diaspora. Kara is kind of the other slightly more grounded side of the people that left Gainax.
That's a way to put it.
Kara is Hideaki Anno and Evangelion's. It's the Evangelion studio, and they've been making the Rebuild films since 2006, I want to say. So
also had a huge hand in the Animator Expo shorts.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
They've done a lot more than just Evangelion, but that is 99% of their claim to fame. It
is really curious to see them here because, like we've been saying, it's A1 who has Aniplex running the money and are the actual producers, and then we have Trigger who are under the Ultra Super Pictures, right?
Yeah.
And they have their own CG studio, and I'm brain farting.
Sonzigen.
Yeah, Sonzigen.
Yeah.
So it's curious to see Kara guys there because, frankly, I would have expected Sonzigen to be on this. But I guess Aniplex, I don't know if muscled out is the right term, but
I don't know if muscled out so much as...
I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. It's just curious to see.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if, again, some of this incestuous finagling was happening with, especially Nishigori, who still definitely has a lot of old Gainax contacts, probably reached out to Kara and saw if they would work on the show because, yeah, like you were saying before, I mean, talent attracts talent and hype attracts hype. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was just some finagling on someone's part. Yeah, because, Kara isn't really related in any way to either one of these studios.
They're on an island.
Business-wise. They're actually still owned by the same company that owns Gainax, surprisingly enough. So they're closer to Gainax than either one of those studios are business-wise. But there definitely is still a lot of people at Kara that know people at Trigger and A1 and all over the place because, you know, it's Kara. Finally, we have our action director, which is not a position that usually exists in anime.
No, but when you have this guy there, you better let it exist.
Hiroyuki Imaishi. He is one of the co-founders of Trigger. And yes, he is a man, a myth, and a legend. He is my favorite animator, one of my favorite directors, director of Kill la Kill, director of Space Patrol Luluco. You know, basically,
he's the crazy one at Trigger.
Yeah, he's the guy that whenever you see a cut that looks like it's from Street Sharks, that's Imaishi. You know, directed a Fully Cooley episode. He's creator of Dead Leaves, if you remember that. Director of Gurren Lagann, a lot of Gurren Lagann at least. Panty and Stocking.
Yeah.
Just a all around
crazy dude.
Yeah, crazy guy, very stylistic. But if there is one thing that he specializes in more than anything else, it is mecha action.
Yeah, just like crazy, kinetic, bombastic.
And we've seen some of it already in the PV. But yeah, he is exactly the right person to basically make up a position to be action director on a mecha show. It's
cool because we have so many amazing directors and designers on this, and normally one of the things that the chief animation director does is check things and redraw when needed.
Yeah,
and it's really cool that we're going to have Imaishi doing that on top of this already, you know, crazy chief director that's worked on Your Name and, you know, and Anohana. We have Imaishi double checking his work on action.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I'm sure Imaishi's going to storyboard some of it.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see like actual key animation from him in certain episodes. I mean,
that's I'm sure we will.
That's the thing I think I'm most excited about to see more than anything else is all the Trigger animators that no doubt will be doing action animation on this thing. Like, obviously, A1 is supplying the vast bulk of like the workhorses for the show, but I'm still excited to see people like Hiroyuki Imaishi and like Yoshinari Yo and maybe even Sushio come out of the works and, you know, actually do some key animation on a thing, because if anything is going to get them out of the Trigger cave, it's going to be this fucking show, because it's
good old robot show.
Yeah,
made with their old friends.
Yeah, because I'm like trying to think of the last time that they worked on a big old robot all worked on a big old robot show together, and it was probably Gurren Lagann.
Yeah,
and a lot of them also like worked on like fucking End of Evangelion too. So it's like this type of thing literally only happens once every 10 or so years, actually, now that I think about it.
It's time. Yeah. Bring in the robots.
Yeah. So
it's exciting. It is an exciting piece of work, and 4 days we get to see it.
Yeah. At least 4 days at this recording, probably sooner when you guys will actually be seeing this. But so that's about it for the video. Before we go, let's talk about our personal expectations for what this thing is going to be. I try not to predict too much going into shows like this, just because I feel like most of the time any and all of my predictions about anime are wrong.
Same.
I am a stupid. But it's like it's hard to predict because like I don't know, like there's so many people informing the style and feel and story of this show all at once that like I have no idea what it's going to feel like. I don't know if it's going to be like a massive Gainax nostalgia trip, or if it's going to be something on the likes of which none of us have ever seen before. Like it could very well be both. I legitimately have no clue. But what I am expecting is for it to look good. I'm expecting for the voice acting to be good. It looks very colorful, so there's that. With the amount of people working on it, I would be shocked if it wasn't an incredibly colorful show. Yeah, I don't know. The only other thing, like, probably you mentioned it earlier, but I think it probably will be focused more on like interpersonal relationships than I think maybe people are
definitely thinking. If nothing else, I mean, obviously we know that there's the pairs piloting the things. They've made that wickedly obvious from the promotional material, but the actual right staff, we have the Steins Gate guy, and he kind of excels at that. Like he always has this crazy backdrop, be it massive robots, be it government conspiracies and time travel, but it's really the interconnectivity of the characters that drives the stories along. And it's going to be really good to see that guy get to do his stuff amidst all the crazy mecha, like sci-fi action. For me, I'm definitely excited about the whole thing. It's impossible not to be, just everything I love in mech design is here. Some of my favorite creators from old school Gainax are here. The only thing I'm worried about is like literally the last time we saw this much talent and this from this many like disparate places, it was Guilty Crown.
Yeah.
So I get worried every time this happens because I mean it might be like too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, could be.
I completely derailed myself by
right.
saying too many cooks, but that's really my only worry about it. That having been said, I wouldn't even say cautiously optimistic. I'm super optimistic about this show. These people have all worked together before. They know what they're doing. They're all old hats,
Yeah.
It's exciting to see where the story goes. I mean, we got 20 something episodes to work with too. Who the hell knows what it's going to be looking like at the end of summer?
Yeah. Yeah, and like the other thing to say in these guys' favor is that not only have they all worked together before, but they all have a pretty distinct vision. It's pretty easy to see when these guys all get together how it could match up pretty clearly. And the other thing is that like A1 and actually Aniplex more than anyone seems to be incredibly confident in the production and incredibly confident in the material. So much so that they literally moved up production, which doesn't fucking happen in the anime industry. So that gives me a lot of hope because it tells me that they, really are confident in this thing. I know in this world right now where, we're just a week off of fucking Devilman Crybaby. It's like hard to imagine anything as fucking game changing as that. But I'm hoping Darling in the Frankxx injects some new life into mecha, which shockingly is a genre that is like
it's kind of stagnating.
It's incredible. I mean, like, can you name a mecha show from the past year that is a true mecha show that like is worth talking about other than Knights and Magic, which even so, like
even then they were magic mechs.
Yeah, like I can't.
Yeah.
I can't name one for the past like couple of years. Like the only one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head right now is fucking Alt Noah Zero, and I don't want to ever talk about that show again.
I mean, you have Gundam's like special things that they're doing, and that's it. You got like Origin and Thunderbolt, and
I'm just talking about like, I mean, especially like the super robot genre.
Yeah, no,
like,
there really hasn't been much. What's crazy is we also have Promare after this too.
Yeah, that'll be a whole other.
That's a different
video. Anyways, guys.
But before we go, one thing I can say, regardless of how good or bad this show is, one thing I can guarantee is going to be awesome is all the companies and all the people, especially involved in making this, love releasing production materials.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to get to see the storyboards. We're going to get to see Genga. We're going to get to see Dojinshi based on it. It's going to
awesome.
It's going to be a good day for people who like that stuff.
And all the toys.
All the
I'm
toys.
so excited. Good smile. Where are you at?
Yeah, Aniplex. Please don't let Aniplex Plus touch it. I don't want to spend $600 on a mech.
There's our requisite hot take. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to do it here for us. Onoanime.moe obviously is the place you can go. YouTube.com/onoanime. Please subscribe and like and all that good shit. And we'll see you on January 13th for the premiere of Darling in the Frankxx, the anime of the year 2018, hopefully. All right, everybody. We'll see you.